Nun Gimel Sif Dalet. Now this begins a whole Siman of discussing who is Roy to be Chazan and who's not Roy to be Chazan. So I'll just mention this as a Hakdama before we begin. The Magen Avraham writes that these, while it's obviously still good to keep, obviously certain things are definitely still halacha, like who's possible for a Chazan, that still applies. But as we'll see today, we're going to be listing all the milas that we're looking for, a tzaddik and someone who didn't do averis when he was younger, and all these things. This is not the laws of Yom Kippur. This is in Siman and Gimel. This is every day. So why are we not particular about it every day? So the Magen Avraham says that the reason why they're not particular about this anymore as much as they used to is because nowadays the chazan is not moitzi everybody. It used to be no one davened. The chazan said everything. So he was mamish, the only person being mispal. If you're the only person being mispal, high criteria needed. But nowadays, where everyone's davening their own, the only thing the chazan is really doing is kaddish and kedusha. Chazan is a shatz, but he's not really being moitzi anybody. It's kaddish and kedusha. So once it's just kaddish and kedusha, you definitely have to. You can't be puzzle, but the prerequisites are a little bit less severe. That's what the poskim say. So the Mechaber says, shatz tzarich shia hagen. Chazan has to be hagen, proper. Be'izu hagen. What does it mean proper? Shia reikon me'averis. He can't sin. V'shelo yotzel of shem ra afil be'edusai, and he couldn't have had a bad reputation even when he was younger. She'anav, he should be humble. Merutz la'am, he should be liked by the people. V'yishlo ne'ima, he should have a sweetness. V'koi le'orev, he should have a nice voice. V'rogel likras Torah nevi miksuvim, he should be well versed in Tanakh. So the Mishnah Berurah explains, tzarich, that a person should be a hagen, it should be proper. T'chsiv nosna alai koila al karch sinesiha. The pasuk says, "I place my voice upon you, and therefore it causes hate." So what does it mean? Amar Chazal, it's a shat shein hagen. Means it's talking about a chazan who's not roy. If you have a chazan who's not worthy of the position, that's nasa like koila. I give my voice, al karch sinesaha, but it causes hatred chas v'shalom and shemayim because he's not roy. And the Poskim discussed at length how severe it is because it prevents good things to come down for Klal Yisrael because he's getting in the way. Hagen, says the Mishnah Berurah, the chazan's clothing has to be long, shelo yiru raglov, so that his legs are not exposed. He should not wear shorts. He should go in first and then last. Tipish v'sachal, he shouldn't be ignorant. He shouldn't be simple. He can't be someone that you can't speak to. He's got to be someone that has a head on his shoulders. And it should be a tzaddik ben tzaddik. And he says, because it's a higher madrigal than the tzaddik son of a rasha. And when the Rosh said that the yichus is irrelevant, so what's the problem with the tzaddik ben rasha? The Rosh was talking about the average person. See, your father's a simple person. No, don't hold it against the guy. The father's a rasha. That's something. So he says, physical problems, unless we'll see, there's certain ones, but like unless you can't stand, but physical, deformities, that doesn't disqualify a chazan, disqualifies a kohen. He says, Adarava, leiv nishbar v'nitka l'kim lo'isiboza. Hashem enjoys the broken-hearted people. But some are machmer, if there's someone who's on the same madrega that doesn't have any physical deformities, it's better. Ma'averis, the Mishnah Berurah then talks about how Ivral Shvua, someone who makes a Shvua and doesn't keep it, ein beisei reikam, it affects the family. Therefore, it's something to be avoided. Kasavei sham b'shem mishpat tzedek, the mishu pasal machmas avera. So interesting. Mishpat tzedek says that if you taka did an avera, that's pasal. So it's mechal shavus b'fahesia. So that's for sure pasal. Ravadia talked about something in the public school, shaving with a razor, whatever the disqualified averas are. Afilu b'akroi. First of all, even once in a while, it's not like you have to do it all the time. Even if you do it once in a while, that's enough to disqualify. Because of Prima Godim had dafkum shalei esa tshuva. The Prima Godim says if you did tshuva, then you're accepted. Other places come elbow machma, as we'll see. The Mishnah Berurah then adds, by the way, this whole thing that you should be roy and hagen and not have bad reputation, that's all to initially give you the position. Once you're already up there as chazan, to remove the guy, we don't remove him unless he has absolute disqualifications. You don't remove a guy from that post because it's not appropriate. Bial do say that he can't have a bad reputation from his childhood. I feel in his barrel asas tshuva. Even if he did tshuva, so he was the thug and everyone hated him, and he stole and all these things. He did tshuva. Still, I feel like it's not good for him to be chazan. If this was the reputation that he had, it's not good to be chazan. Okay. Kasab b'tshuvas maraminti yizara chazan and miyesh rivu ketata ben shnei balibatim she'yoshev al tasa ben hem b'dibar hem b'maisa hem b'kila hem b'seiser. If there's a fight in the shul, the chazan should not get involved, because you don't want, first of all, for people to think that he's taking sides, then he doesn't have the other guy in mind by davening. Also, then it also affects how he looks at it. He should step out of all machlokes, and the chazan should be avoiding all machlokes. If he has a fight, if the chazan got into a fight with someone from the shul, then he should speak to the rabbi, because it's something that got to get involved. You can't let it go, unless the chazan is not at fault, in which case, if he's not at fault, he's not at fault. Chazan should also be someone who's proficient in Tanakh. The reason why is because they didn't have Sidurim. So if you were someone who didn't know Tanakh, you wouldn't be able to daven well. So it says the Mishnah Berurah. Also, by the way, stop. You can't. Also, if you have someone who doesn't learn Tanakh, then you can't be Chazan. Kasam Pri Megadim. Issa the Rosh Hashanah be'Kippur and be'inish ein nasui. For a chazan for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, he should be married. Ben Shloshim should be 30. Okay, implying that during the year it's not a hakpazit to be married. But he says if someone's married, then it's better than a bacher. But even throughout the year, Mechaber will do Sefei and then we'll stop. Mechaber says in Sefei, Im ein moitziin mishu by kol hamidas elu. Let's say you can't find someone that has all these qualities. Yivchar hatoiv shabatzibar. Then find the best of the tzibur, the most mitzvahs, the best. Good person. Vim says the Rama, Vim hoya kan ama oretz zakin v'koilei noim v'am chafetzim boy. Let's say you have a choice. You have an amoritz, an ignorant person, someone who's not knowledgeable at all, but he's older and people like him and he has a nice voice. Uban yidgim l'shanim hamevin masha omer v'in koilei noim. Or you have a 13-year-old kid whose voice is not as good, but he understands the davening and he is much frommer. The child should come first. They didn't care that much about the voice. That's a new thing that not new, it's the last couple hundred years that the singer is to be chazan. The ikar is that should be a good person. The Rama says a big chiddush, and that is that if someone did an aver b'shoigig, like he killed someone b'shoigig, and he did tshuva, he could be chazan. But if he did it on purpose, tshuva is not going to help because he already has the bad reputation. So the Mishnah Berurah says, that on someone who killed someone b'shoigig is able to do tshuva. Mutar liyas the loy mikri ein pirkanola dafka sheyamud lasas dvarim she'enu muganim. Of mishbal yada shigas ma'asim schar is it's other gomer. The psul that we're talking about, if you did it every once in a while, you do an aver by accident, you do tshuva, that's not a problem. The problem is someone who's living in the sin. But if he did b'mezid, then lav dafka hara according shar averis. Any averis that's done b'mezid and people are aware of it, the Rama said it's no good to be inon shleyotzal of shem ra. Again, I don't know how makbid we are about this. The mikamakam yatza, because he had a bad reputation. Ayin Magen Avram shehevi b'shem harbe paiskin. I feel amazed. Kol sheshavar eliyos shatz kavua. The Magen Avram disagrees. He says, if you did tshuva, you did tshuva. Then what's the problem? Tidafkelin in taina sibor machmir. That he says, I only agree with Amar regarding a taina sibor, but liyos shatz kavua l'shari b'sashan is a regular chazan throughout the year. Mutter. I feel l'chachila as long as he did tshuva. Because of the Rabbi, the Mayom and Arayim yesh lahach meladim bedin tainias. But the El Rabbi says for Yom Kippur, that if you did b'mezid, you should not be chazan. The be'emes I feel ma'aser shana. Okay, fine. Again, but we don't remove him from his post. Shat shahaitzi pam rabbis treifis mitachas yadai. If you have a chazan that was a butcher and he was selling treifis, misalka noisim mishatz, removed. The shuv dainin le b'mezid. Even if he says it's an accident, how many times could you do the same accident? At some point it becomes b'mezid. I'm a garam. The Mistapik Afilu Pamachas Yidur Meza. The Pri Megadim says even one time is b'meza. When it comes to treifus is no. Butcher knows when he's selling treifus, and therefore it's b'meza. But if he did shuva one time, then you could be makel even by treifus.